There is one mistake happening in your relationship right now. And the worst part is, you probably do not even know you are making it. It is quiet, it is subtle, and it is slowly pulling two people apart who genuinely love each other. By the time most people notice it, the damage has already been done. So stay with me, because what I am about to share with you changes everything. Let me paint you a picture. Two people sitting in the same room, maybe watching TV, maybe scrolling their phones. They are physically close, but emotionally they are miles apart. There is no big argument happening, no screaming, no dramatic moment, just silence. And underneath that silence is something that has been building for months, maybe years. A slow, invisible wall that neither person knows how to break through. That is not a random scenario. That is the reality for millions of couples right now. And it all traces back to one core mistake in how they handle conflict. Before I go deeper, I want to be honest with you. Most people who stumble across content like this are not in crisis mode. They are in something far more painful than that. They are in the in-between. That place where things are not terrible enough to leave but not good enough to feel alive in. That quiet ache of being with someone and still feeling lonely. If that is you, you are not broken, and your relationship is not hopeless. But something needs to change, and it needs to change soon. We have a program linked in the description below this video. Thousands of people have already used what is inside it to completely transform the way they communicate and connect. If you are serious about your relationship, do not wait to check it out. The people who hesitate are the same people who end up back here in 6 months watching another video, still stuck. The people who move fast are the ones who actually see results. Now let me give you the full picture of what is actually happening. The mistake is not what you fight about, it is how you fight. More specifically, it is the moment right before the fight, and what both people do in that moment that determines whether the relationship grows or dies. Here is what actually happens at a neurological level. When conflict arises, the human brain goes into threat detection mode almost instantly. The part of your brain that handles logic and empathy goes offline, and the part that handles survival takes over. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles tense, and without even meaning to, you shift from being a partner to being an opponent. This is not a character flaw, this is biology. But when you do not understand it, it destroys you. Here is where the mistake comes in. In that activated state, most people do one of two things. They either attack or they shut down. The attacker raises their voice, uses words like always and never, brings up old wounds and pushes hard to win the argument. The person who shuts down goes silent, leaves the room, deflects, or gives cold one-word answers. Both of these responses feel justified in the moment. Both of these responses make logical sense to the person doing them. And both of them are slowly killing the relationship. Think about the last real conflict you had. Not the surface argument about dishes or money or plans. The real one underneath it. The one where you went to bed feeling completely misunderstood. Where you lay there in the dark wondering if this person even sees you. Where you had a whole conversation in your head that you never said out loud because you already knew it would not land right. That feeling right there, that is not a communication problem. That is a disconnection problem. And the conflict is not the cause. The conflict is just where the disconnection becomes impossible to ignore. Here is what happens over time when this pattern repeats. First, the trust starts to erode, not all at once, slowly. You stop bringing certain things up because it never goes well. You start editing yourself. You share less. You protect more. And the person who was once your safe place starts to feel like a minefield. Every conversation has potential danger in it. So you stay on the surface. You talk about logistics, schedules, responsibilities. The relationship becomes functional but empty. Then something else happens. You start keeping score. It becomes subtle at first. A mental catalog of moments when you were not heard, not appreciated, not chosen. And that catalog grows quietly. People who use what we teach see this pattern collapse completely within weeks. Not because they learn magic words, but because they finally understand the root of what is happening. But we will get to that. Second, the resentment builds. And resentment is a poison that spreads slowly through everything. It makes the good moments feel hollow because somewhere underneath them is a mountain of unaddressed hurt. You can be laughing together at dinner and still feel this invisible heaviness. You can be physically intimate and still feel a distance that cannot be explained. Resentment does not announce itself loudly. It just quietly makes everything feel a little less real. Third, and this is the one that most people never talk about, you start grieving the relationship while you are still in it. You look at old photos and wonder where those two people went. You remember conversations that felt electric and wonder why everything now feels so flat. You do not want to leave, but you do not know how to get back. That grief is one of the loneliest feelings in the world because you cannot explain it to anyone without sounding ungrateful. You are with someone. Things are fine on the outside, but inside something is dying. Now let me show you what happens on the other side. When people actually learn how to handle conflict differently, the transformation is not gradual, it is sudden. It feels like someone turned a light back on in a room that had been dark for years. The first thing that shifts is safety. When both people finally feel safe expressing how they actually feel without it turning into a war, something remarkable happens. The conversation changes completely. The things that used to explode into arguments become doorways into deeper understanding. The very conflicts that were tearing you apart become the moments that bring you closer together. People who have gone through this transformation describe it in remarkably consistent ways. They say things like, "I feel like I actually know my partner again," or, "I had no idea they were carrying all of that," or, "I cannot believe we wasted years fighting about things we never actually disagreed on." Because here's the truth that almost no one tells you. Most relationship conflicts are not about the thing they appear to be about. The argument about money is almost never about money. The fight about priorities is almost never about time management. Underneath every repeated conflict is an unmet emotional need that has never been articulated clearly enough to be understood. And the moment that need finally gets spoken and heard, the conflict dissolves almost instantly. Imagine waking up tomorrow and actually feeling excited to talk to your partner. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because the conversations feel different. Because there is safety there that was not there before. Imagine going through a genuinely difficult situation, a stressful decision, a hard moment, and instead of it pulling you apart, it actually brings you together. Imagine looking at your partner after one of those moments and thinking, "I am so glad I have them." Not because they fixed everything, but because you finally know how to move through things together. That is not a fantasy. That is what happens when the actual root problem gets addressed. And the root problem, the one underneath all of it, is that most people were never taught how to regulate themselves emotionally during conflict. They were never taught that the goal is not to win but to understand. They were never taught that the most powerful thing you can say in the middle of an argument is not a comeback but a question, a real one. Not a passive-aggressive one, a genuine question that says, "Help me understand where you are coming from." The couples who crack this open report that their relationship improves more in the first 30 days than it did in the previous 3 years. That is not an exaggeration. That is a pattern we see repeatedly. Because when you stop fighting against each other and start understanding each other, everything accelerates. Trust rebuilds faster than you thought possible. Resentment starts to clear. And that grief, that quiet mourning of the relationship you once had, it starts to lift. Because you realize you are not losing the relationship. You were just lost inside a pattern that had nothing to do with how much you love each other. Here's what I want you to do right now. The next time you feel that familiar tension rising in a conversation with your partner, before you respond, before you defend, before you withdraw, just pause. Even for 5 seconds. In those 5 seconds, ask yourself one question. What is this person actually trying to tell me underneath the words they are using? You do not have to have the perfect response. You do not have to solve anything. You just have to be willing to stay curious instead of going to war. That one shift alone, done consistently, begins to rewire the entire dynamic. The reason most people never get there is not because they lack love. It is because they lack the tools. Love without tools is like wanting to build something beautiful but only having a hammer. You end up breaking things you meant to build, and then you blame yourself, or you blame your partner, when the truth is you were both just working with what you had. The program in the description below gives you the tools. Everything we have talked about today barely scratches the surface of what is inside it. People come to it feeling exhausted, convinced that their relationship is too far gone, that too much has happened, that it is too late. And they leave it feeling something they had completely forgotten was possible. Hope. Real, grounded hope, backed by action and clarity, not just wishful thinking. If you have been watching this and feeling that quiet recognition, that knowing that this is exactly what is happening in your relationship, do not let this be another video you watch and walk away from unchanged. The cost of doing nothing is not staying the same. The cost of doing nothing is watching things get worse while telling yourself you will deal with it later. Later has a way of becoming never. Go check out the program in the description. The ones who act today are the ones who look back a year from now completely unrecognizable from where they are standing right now.